Hi everyone, welcome back. As it is a new year, we're going to commence with trying to get a bit of mobility back into the body, commencing with the hips and the lower body. As the lower body gets tighter, it starts to stiffen up the upper body. So we're going to start low, take it nice and easy today, and try and reintroduce maybe a little bit of movement that we've not used in a while. So to begin with, just come down seated to the floor, cross your legs however you prefer. Focus on a nice straight tall back, pushing your seat bones firmly into the ground, maybe tucking the chin very slightly and softening or closing the eyes. Then from here we're just going to gradually slow down the breath, commencing with long inhales through the nose and then exhaling through the nose as well. Inhaling in and exhaling. See if each time you inhale, you can match the duration for the exhale, evening out the breaths between each other, just gradually making them slower and slower. Okay, from here we're going to come onto all fours into tabletop pose, stacking the shoulders above the elbows, above the wrists, and stacking the hips above the knees. So from here we're just going to flat and try and make the back as long as possible. And we're going to do a little bit of cat-cow here. So by inhaling, we're pulling the back down to the ground, inhaling and pulling the chest up and through to look forward. And then on an exhale, we're tucking our hips under, really peeling the abdomen up to the back body, really pushing through, reversing the position of the arch. And then repeating, inhaling, coming down, pulling the chest up and through. And then again on the exhale, really create a vacuum in the lower abdomen, pulling it up and through. Once there's no air left to put out, commence inhaling nice and slowly, nice and controlled. So you want to keep lots of length in the back body here. We don't want to keep crunched up. But as we do this, focus on the positioning of the hips throughout this movement. Set the intention for it today. So what we're wanting to do is we want to make sure we can really get some flexion as we come up, and then really bring it in as we exhale. Over time, depending on how stiff you are, you might not be able to get too much of a movement around the hip area. That will gradually come over time. Similar to anything really, riding a bike, anything at all. The more you do the movement pattern, the more subconsciously your body adapts to it. So the more we can really go to the outer limits, comfortably mind you, go to the outer limits of our mobility, the more our body will get used to that area, and over time, hopefully, it should no longer become the outer limit. You'll be able to go a little bit beyond and a little bit further. So just in your own time, the breath, just inhaling up and exhaling back down. Okay, on your next inhale, come up to a flat back. Then we're just going to take the right leg, we're just going to bring it up to 45 degrees, just make some nice angles in the body, and then on an exhale, lift and pull it through to step in between your hands. So from here, we want to start leaning forward, really pressing into the hip region, really pressing into the hip flexor on your left leg, as well as really pressing down into the top of the left foot and the outside of the right foot. And then from here, just get a nice long pose in a low lunge position. Should feel nice and long, depending on how tight you are. You might feel it already quite a bit in the hip flexor. You might even feel it across the lower back. You might feel it underneath the front leg. The way you should be positioned is ideally trying to get your back as flat as possible. Again, really trying to pull yourself out and away, really extending that back. Just continue to breathe nice and deeply. Keep the breath nice and long. We're just going to hold it here for a little while. Due to a lot of sitting down, especially what we do in the Western world, if we sit at an office or a desk all day, is our hip flexors have a tendency to get really tight from the seating position that we typically sit in. So it's not often now in daily life that we can actually give our hip flexors a really good stretch. That's why you find a lot of people usually walking at a little bit of an angle rather than fully upright and straight, and it's simply because their hip flexors are too tight and they can't get that full extension. So we're just going to remain in this pose for a while, just really enjoying the stretch that it's providing us. Depending on your level of flexibility, you might be able to sit a little bit more into it each time. We're just taking it nice and easy for today. Re-engaging all parts of the body. So although the intention today is to start opening up the hips, obviously the body cannot be done in isolation. Everything interlinks between each other. So although we're really focusing on the hips today, you might also feel this stretch in other places. Peeling the shoulders back to create that long back will not only increase that stretch in the hips, but you might also notice some tightness maybe around the shoulders, maybe the lower back. You might feel it down the quads, maybe the backs of the legs. So this isn't a case of 1 + 1 makes 2, it's a case of 1 + 1 makes 3. So not only are you benefiting the area you're targeting, you might also be benefiting a number of areas closely connected to it. Okay, and then from here, we're just going to press ourselves back, peeling the toes up towards the ceiling. We're just going to hold it wherever is comfortable for yourself today. Maybe try and see if you can pull the chest through as much as possible, so we don't want to overextend and try to end up creating the tension in the muscles. We want to make sure we're only going far enough that keeps us nice and loose here and creating a nice stretch up the back of the leg. So we're going to remain here for a few breaths. Just play around, so on each inhale, try and really expand the body. Might intensify the stretch a little bit. And then on the exhales, see if you can maybe sit back a little bit further, maybe peel your toes up a little bit further. If they stay perfectly where they are, they only move maybe a millimeter, that's perfectly fine. But just have a play around, see if you can just really lean into that stretch a little bit more with each breath. Okay, then from here we're going to rock a little bit back and forward. So on the inhales, We're going to really lean forward into that low lunge. And then on our exhales, we're going to lean back across that leg until we've really vacuumed all the air out of our body. And then as we begin our inhales, slowly come forward. See how far you can bring yourself. And then exhale back. We're just going to create this quite dynamic movement. Inhaling forward. Exhaling back. Okay, next time you come forward, remain in the lower lunge. We'll just do a little bit of opening here. So taking our left arm first. On the inhale, we're just going to create a little bit of a twist, bringing our hand up towards the ceiling. Just breathing nice and deeply. You might find certain tightnesses elsewhere. Don't worry if you can't quite do the full rotation. Don't try to really overextend the shoulder in order to get around. It should be in line with your chest as you bring it up. You might find if the sides of your hip are quite tight, you might feel it a little bit here. And then exhale, come back down. Then we're going to take it to the other side. Inhaling the right arm up, rotating the other direction. Remember, try and keep the back as long as possible. Maybe rotating the head a little bit to look up towards your thumb. Breathing nice and controlled, nice and evenly. And then exhaling, slowly making your way back down. Okay, from here, we're going to take the right leg and we're going to open it out to 45 degrees. And then if it's available to you, taking our hands to the inside of that leg, we're going to lean down on the ground like so, into gecko pose. This will just intensify the stretch around the hip on the right side, especially the inner hip. And then in your own time, if this is as far as you'd quite like to go and you just want to hang out here, feel free to. Otherwise, tuck the back toes under, and we're just going to lift that knee up, really increasing the stretch across the inside of the hips. Remember to breathe nice and evenly here. Keep the back nice and long. And then on your next exhale, lower that leg down. Come up onto your hands. And then to finish off this side, what we're going to do, if it's available to you, so we're going to lift that back leg up, and with our left arm, take a hold of the inside or maybe the outside of the foot. Just slowly bring our heel up towards our sit muscles. Now, if this is too much for you, you can only get your leg partial way up. Feel free to use a band or maybe even a tie, just so that you've got something to grip onto. Tie it around the foot and hold the other end with your hand. Otherwise, if you can take a hold, and just remember to keep your chest nice and proud here. And release. Coming back down, bringing the right toes forward again to a low lunge. On an inhale, lifting it back up at an angle like we did at the start. And then exhale down to the floor. Now the fun part is we get to do it all again on the other side. So getting into a nice long tabletop pose, going to lift left leg up at an angle, and then on an exhale, bringing it through in between our hands. So again, to begin with, we'll remain in a low lunge position. We'll just hang out here, just easing and teasing out any knots, any tightnesses that might be around the right hip flexor. Try to remember to keep the back nice and long, nice and straight. Just inhaling nice and long, and then matching it with the exhale. So the reason we're hanging out here for a good while is from what I mentioned earlier regarding not getting a lot of opportunities these days to extend and stretch out these parts of the bodies. So the more we can do here, the more beneficial it is for us in future. This is a great pose for as we age and we get older. We don't want to start hunching over, putting off our center of gravity. That's how accidents and slips, trips and falls and all the nasty stuff occurs. So the more upright and taller we can make ourselves, the better and more natural our center of gravity, and the less likely we are to create in ourselves little accidents as we age. Same goes for mobility. Mobility is a lot easier once you have it, and once you start to lose it, it's a lot of work to get back again. So the longer we can hold on to it, the better. See if you can sink into the hips a little bit more, maybe bringing the chest up and through a little bit further. Pressing down into the top of the right foot. And then from here, on your next exhale, we're just going to lean back, peeling our toes up towards the ceiling. Wherever you find most natural to hold this position, feel free to. Even if you need to scoop the back feet and just start to sit down on that, wherever you can start to feel the back of the leg starting to work and engage. Don't worry if it feels a little bit different to the other leg. We don't always use our body evenly. As a 50-50 split, we tend to have a preference. You might find one side is a little bit stiffer than the other. Maybe one side's a little bit stronger than the other, a little bit more flexible. Don't worry about it today. Try to really push your sit muscles back, straightening out that body, maybe trying to really not force but push the chest upwards, making a nice proud posture, nice long pose. Now on your next inhale, lean forward back into a low lunge. And then exhale back, peeling the toes up to the ceiling. And we're just going to continue that dynamic movement. Feel that stretch nice on the hip flexor. And then exhaling back, moving that focus onto the back of the leg. maybe in time with your own breath or following myself, just inhaling forward, exhaling back. Maybe take the time to soften, or maybe even close your eyes if that's more appealing to you. Start to work more internally, more intuitive with the body. So we're just going to do this a couple more times. Inhaling forward, exhaling back. Okay, on your next inhale, we'll remain in a low lunge. And then if it's available to anyone, feel free to remain here if it's what you're needing today. Otherwise, take your left hand to the inside of your left foot and then rotate your left foot out 45 degrees. Again, if any of this becomes too much, just remain at the step before. Just embrace wherever you're at today. So if you're fine here, feel free to come down onto your forearms into gecko pose. Feeling that stretch across the inner thigh. And then again, if you want to take it a step further, curl under the back toes and lift that back leg up. Really pushing back and away. So keep holding it. It does build strength across the legs. Builds up a little bit of warmth. So don't worry if you start to feel a sweat commencing. And on your next exhale, slowly lower your back knee back to the ground. Coming back up. And then bringing the left toes back to center, pointing forward. Now we can't forget about the little twists here. So beginning with the right arm, in line with the chest, we're just going slowly on an inhale, raise it up, try and get it to the ceiling if that's available. Maybe looking up at the thumb. Continuing to breathe nice and long. And then on your next exhale, slowly lowering back to the ground. And inhaling, taking up the left arm. Just enjoying wherever we are today. And on your next exhale, back down. Okay, and then from here, we're just going to bring ourselves back, bring that foot back above us into a nice angle. Exhale, bring it down, bring our toes together, bring our knees nice and wide. We're just going to recline back into child's pose. So see if you can really push your sit bones back to try and touch the heels of your feet. Then try and keep your hands extended as far forward as possible, stretching up the side body. Try and keep your shoulders away from your ears. Prevent any hunching going on. Then from here, an inhale, followed by an exhale, come forward, right onto your front, and then roll over onto your back, just nice and slowly. Keeping everything out nice and long. And then we're going to take the first foot up, maybe that right leg in this instance. Really press the knee into the chest. Keep the other leg out nice and long. Maybe give the knee a little bit of a move left and right. Just feel if you have any sensations going on in the hip flexor on this. Don't overshoot it, just nice and gentle. Okay, and then from here, take our hands to the back of the foot, and we're just going to lift the leg up. Might not be able to get it completely straight. What we want to do is keep the leg really close to us, bring the knee really close, then lift the foot as far as we can. Ideally, maybe you can get the leg completely straight. Maybe you can get the base of your foot to face the ceiling. Maybe you're relatively tight in this area like myself here, and you're only able to go up at a very small acute angle. Wherever you are, don't worry about it. Just keep pulling the back of the leg into the body, stretching out the foot. And then let that go. Take one more pull of the knee, into the chest, sorry, and then exhale, letting it go back to the ground. And then we'll repeat it on the other side. Inhaling up, bringing the knee in nice and close into the chest. Just continue to breathe nice and deeply. Good opportunity again to keep the eyes softened or closed and start to work internally. Focusing on that mind-body connection. Make sure the shoulders are still away from the ears. Try and make sure that you're not scrunching your face at all. Try and make sure all the muscles are nice and loose. Taking the knee maybe a little bit left and right, just very slowly. See if there's any sensations that come with it. If you're not liking it, just go back to a static hold. It's your body's way of telling you something's not quite right there, or at least something it doesn't want to do today maybe. If it's been a long day, the less your body will want to do. And there's no point in forcing it. There's always tomorrow. Okay, and from here, again, we're going to take our hands behind our leg, keeping it closed in nice and tight. We're going to lift the foot up towards the ceiling as far as we can comfortably go, still pulling into the chest. Remember to keep that long, even breaths going, nice and continuous. And then exhale, bring the foot down, take a hold of the outside of the leg again, really pull in the knee towards the chest, and then exhale, let go. Okay, from here we're going to take our feet up to not quite up to our bum, but just high enough that means we can comfortably plant our feet on the ground. Taking the feet as wide as our mat, we're then going to drop the knees to the side. I'm taking them to the right, but whichever you prefer right now, go that way first. Just letting it rest on the ground. Taking our hands up into cactus pose, so that's almost into a T with the elbows pointing directly away from us, our hands pointing up towards the wall behind us. And then from here, if it's available to you and it's not too intense on the knees, we're going to take the foot. So in this case, my knees are pointing to the right, so I'm going to take my right foot, I'm going to place it on top of the left knee, and all that does is it just applies a little bit more weight to the leg, just encouraging a little bit more of an in-depth stretch. And then maybe rotating the head to face the opposite direction. So for me, that'll be to the left. Just engaging the whole body into this one movement. Release the foot if it's on top, bring it down to the bottom, then we'll inhale, bring everything back up, and then on an exhale, take it over to the other side. Knees point in the opposite direction. Take our head maybe to point in the opposite direction as well, this time to the right for myself. And then take that left foot, place it on top of the right knee. Again, just encouraging a little bit more intensity into the stretch. Soften the breath. Let the back yield into the ground. Okay, from here, I'm going to come back to center, bringing the knees back up, and then just take the legs out nice and long. From here, I'm just going to finish off, really stretching the hands and the toes away from each other in opposite directions. Take a nice big inhale, extend as far as you can, and then exhale, sweep the hands down to our side. Let the feet open up nice and wide to the sides. Place the palms to point towards the ceiling. Soften or close the eyes. Tuck the chin slightly. Take a nice big inhale. And exhale, nice and long. and then just revert to normal breathing. Have a quick scan of the body. Are you holding any tightness anywhere? Are your fists clenched? Is your face all tight? See if you can just loosen them up a little bit, just ease the muscles off. Let the back of your head, back of your shoulders, back of your torso, and the back of your legs just slowly sink into the ground. Okay, and for those that want to remain a little bit longer, feel free to. Otherwise, very slowly come back up to seated position, crossing the legs however you feel comfortable. Maybe sitting up on a block, just pulling yourself nicely out of your lower back. Continue to sit nice and tall. If your eyes are closed, just gently flutter them open, let the light in. And that's the end of the practice today. Thank you for joining me. Have a great week ahead, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.